Hello and welcome back to the step-by-step video build of Kinetics brand new 1/48 scale Harrier Gr3 here on Rick's Scale Model Fix. In part 2 we mated the wing to the fuselage and we put some Mr. Surfacer on to hide the seams, and the fit was pretty good. So just off camera I've removed the Mr. Surfacer and made the seams pretty good, and we're hurtling headlong into getting the model in primer. So it's at this point in the build we start needing to think about adding some of the lumps and bumps to the model. So we've got some of the little parts here that I've already removed from the sprue that we're just going to replace in situ. So we've got the fuel vent pipe E15. So we're just going to put a tiny bit of Tamiya extra thin just to aid its location, and we're just going to make sure we've got it all lined up before we add a more generous application around it. And there's just a little nudge to make sure. There we go. And then there's some other bits to go on the undersurface. To the centerline holes. At this point of the build I prefer to use PVA just to hold that in place in a temporary fashion while the model's painted, primed and weathered, and that just makes sure that all the weapons fit and everything all matches, the pylons all match the rest of the painting. So we'll just set that off to one side to dry. Whilst that's drying, we can have a look at some of the other bits that I've prepared just off camera to save a bit of time. So we've got the two 100-gallon fuel tanks. These need the rear seam removing and sanding, so I should do that in a second. We've got the two 30mm Aden gun pods. These are a weak area of the kit and date way back to the FA2. It would have been nice to have seen these modernised for this release, but hopefully someone would like add or bring out some resin ones. I've built up and attached the Sidewinder launch rails to their adapter. It's ready to go onto the pylon. And as this is going to be the Gr3, I've built up the dolphin nose. I've left the lens out the camera port, and that'll be glazed with crystal clear at the end of the build. So these all need to start being added to the model. So a little bit more construction to be done, and we need to build up the pylons that are unique to the RAF example, and these are provided as new parts in the kit. So we've got A, B, C and D, and they refer to their positions on the airframe. So A, B, C and D. A, B, C and D, so we don't want to get those mixed up, so we're going to look at D8 and D7 first. So I've removed the pylon parts from the sprue and we're just going to clean up those attachment points. Like so. And as always we're going to test the fit. So as you can see we've got a bit of a gap. That's due to the locating pins being a little bit too high. So we'll just cut those down. Which makes for a far better fit. So we'll just glue these together. Good squeeze, making sure the holes for the sway braces line up. I'm just on the undersurface, I'm just going to write A, and then we don't get these mixed up. So we're going to make up pylons B and C now, and these are provided on the new sprue. So P28 and 27, 32 and 33 respectively. So again, just going to move these sprue attachment points. So it's worth mentioning here that should you want the pylons to be empty, they're going to look a bit devoid of detail. So it might be worth looking to see if Edard do an etched set that gives detail to the bottom of the pylons, just to add that little bit more realism. So this one is B. Just when using Sharpie pens like this on your model, just make sure it's in an area that's not going to be visible on the finished kit. Sometimes it reacts with the paint and shows through. These will probably end up getting sanded off anyway, but it just helps identify the parts quickly while they're on the bench, and avoiding any issues getting them in the right locations on the wings. And this one is C. So that's the pylons built up. They need their respective sway braces adding once they dry. So we'll return back to the fuselage and add some of the upper surface lumps and bumps. So we're adding the final lumps and bumps to the airframe, aerials, antennas, vents, etc. It is worth just noting that in the instruction books, if there's anything that you need to fit. So as we can see in section 6, we've got some photo etched to go underneath the wings. I shall add those once the model is ready for primer. Same with the nozzles and the heat shields, they'll all be added after painting. And just following through, so we've got the photo etch wing fences to go on. So again, they're at risk of being damaged, so I'll leave those off until right at the last minute. We've added the ailerons to the wings, but I've left the flaps off just at the moment because it aids access to the undersurface to get the vents, the jet nozzles in. I just pulled the centerline pylon out there. The glue hadn't quite gone off. And not my Mr. Paint over at the same time. So we'll just add a little bit, I'll do that off camera actually and leave it to dry. So we're aware of those. We've got the wingtip navigation lights to go in, so again I'll leave those further to the end of the build. We've got the rudder to add, tail pitot there, looking at it, rudder and the tail pitot, so again one of the last things to be added. And then we're at the nose, so we've got some of the bits and pieces to add to the nose. We've done the tail. So it's in section 15, we've got some vents. So we need parts E2 times 2. So I've harvested some of the parts off the sprues that we need, and we're just going to methodically add these now into their respective locations. So we've got E2, which are the vents at the top of the fuselage. Again, just making sure that we've got them equal. Little bits of liquid cement to allow to run underneath. Get the area in once it's dry. And the other side, trying to get them symmetrical as possible. By running a good bead of glue around the part, you're also sealing it, making sure there's no small holes or seams. So just checking we've got the alignment right, which I think we have. And then we've got E13, which goes in place on the nose. That's probably going to just need a little bit of sanding. Also, I must say that there's a fairly awful sprue connection joint on that part that's going to be vital, more or less impossible, I think, to remove adequately. I'm not even going to try and do it while it's on the workbench, but we shall do it once it's secured in place, hopefully to prevent it pinging off somewhere. And then the last part we have is an aerial blade. Should hopefully fit in there without modification, which it does. Oh, I did have it the right way around. There we go. And then the last item we're going to add is the nose. So actually I think I might leave that until a bit later. Looking at that pitot, I don't think that's going to live very long. So there we go. I think that pitot tube's just asking to be broken off, so we'll leave that for a while. So there's a few more lumps and bumps just to take care of. There's some aerials underneath, so I shall do those just off camera, and join me back at the workbench in a few minutes. Next task on the Kinetic Harrier is to add the wing fences to the leading edges of each wing. There's two. So as you can see from here, I've already done the port side one. These are supplied in etch, along with some other details. So just making sure that you do get the right parts on this one, which is PE2 and PE3, because there are some unused items. So we're just going to cut these off the fret with a knife. So the thinner, smaller fence goes on the inboard side of the wing. So I'm just going to try this on off of this one up in the first instance. And experience usually says that the slot's not deep enough, but I'm just going to try and do it for the camera so you can see. Probably not the easiest thing to do on camera actually. Let's just nip this in a pair of these tweezers. So as you can see, I don't know if the camera will actually pick that up, that because of the depth of the wing and the slot, it won't actually go all the way in. So what we need to do with these is just run a fine razor saw just along the location point. So I'm just using the RB Productions one. And on the back of their scribing tool is a lovely fine razor saw. And then we'll just clear that out with the scriber. Like so. And then we'll try the fit again. So as you can see, that's a perfect fit now, and we're just going to locate that with some super glue just to secure it. I'm just going to clean the with that. Just give that a quick sand. So we're going to just put a very small portion of super glue on the part as well. And we're just going to slide it quickly into place before the glue bites to secure it in place. And then I'm going to do the same for the outboard one. So this is the thicker or the deeper one of the two. And again, just making sure that it's vertical. And the job's done. So with those safely mounted on their positions, we're just going to use a Tamiya diamond file just to remove the etched attachment points. So. and we're one step getting nearer to our target of primer. So there are another couple of etch parts to go on. Just say marking 7 only, which is the one we're doing, and it's a strengthening plate just on the side of the fuselage in between the nozzles. So I've already added one. Hopefully the camera can pick that up, and we're just going to add the other one in situ now. Just put some super glue on the part, and it is a one shot go, so we just got to get it in there and done. So in the last few minutes I've just been assembled the nose of the Harrier Gr3, and this pitot tube is asking to be broken off at some point, and we're at the point of where we're adding the nose. So we're just going to cut this cleanly off, and we're going to put that in the parts box. I'm going to glaze the window, the camera window, with crystal clear, as I said, and it's time now to adhere the nose to the airframe. The fit is pretty good, so we're going to use some slower setting Harrier glues just to give a little bit of wiggle time. So we're going to use white top, and we're just again just going to put a bead around the mating flange, and then we're going to offer it up, and we're just going to press it home, making sure that we've got it true and square. There's a little bit of a gap there which has disappeared. We're going to nudge it up, and once that's in, I'm just going to put some of the normal green top just around the joint, just to attach that. And I'm going to give it the tiniest of pushes just to get a tiny bead of glue into the joint. And there we go. So the pitot will be reattached at the end of the build. Might even look at replacing it with a master brass one. So we've done quite a lot of work on our Harrier Gr3 from Kinetic in the previous 2 parts and this part 3. So it's at this point I'm thinking that we're going to have a quick check through the instruction booklet just to make sure that we've not missed any lumps or bumps that can be added now, and we're going to have a think about getting this one in primer pretty quickly just to see how the build looks in itself. We have a list of parts to fit to the model already that have been built up as we've been waiting for parts to dry. So we have the fuel tanks and the gun pods. I must admit these are fairly crude and would probably look better if they were replaced by some resin ones. If you're listening, aftermarket, Edward, maybe. We've got pylons and sidewinder launch rails and everything there. So there we go, we've got the nose on the Harrier, and we've got that characteristic dolphin nose on. Like I said, camera port's going to be glazed with crystal clear at the end of the build. pitot can be replaced with a brass master one or the kit part reattached to save it breaking off. So we need to get it in primer now to see how the build looks under a coat of paint. So that's something for you to look forward to in part 4. So until next time, look after yourselves and take care, stay safe and well, and enjoy your bench time.